In this tutorial, I'm going to go over how I styled my Female Tartaglia wig and especially how I managed to get the multi-layer effect of curls. First, you want to make sure you've got everything you need, so that's a good wig stand. As you can see here, I used curlers in this video, as you can see from the picture, rubber bands, Got2b Glued, a hairdryer, as well as crimpers. That is optional, but one thing you do need is a hair straightener and a good stand to put your wig on. On the inside of the wig, you'll see that they have these little clips. This is to adjust the size of your wig. You'll want to put it before styling it to the shape of your head, so you're able to help it fit your frame a bit better. There is also the other option of getting a cork head stand that matches the exact shape of your skull. I do not have that. I just have a very standard cork head stand. Then where your ears will be, you might notice these little flaps, as you can see here. Adjust it to make sure they're the same height either side, so you know your wig is even, and then get a pin. And what I do is I pin through these little bits to help hold the wig in place. I will usually also put one pin on the top as well to just help make sure the wig doesn't adjust while styling. I then go with a comb and just give the fringe a little quick brush out. Now I'm going to focus on sectioning the areas of the hair whilst brushing them out, because I always feel like you need to brush out a wig before you start styling it. As you can see from a picture here I'm copying from, one of her bits is forward, and I like this for both sides. I want some of her hair to be in front of her rather than behind the shoulders, so I go and section the bits I want to fall in front of her first, and then I start brushing it out. Some advice I'd give while brushing is to start brushing at the ends. This will help ensure that any knots that are stuck in the wig won't all get stuck and tangled at the end, and that it will be a lot easier to brush all the way out without creating a big knot. Secondly, I do prefer combs. I know tangle teasers have been told to be quite good, but I like it with combs where you can have like two different size sections. I find that's just easier and easier to manage overall when brushing. Then once I've done a section, to help it not get messed up or tangled up with other sections I'm brushing, I will tie it up and move it out the way. Otherwise, you can start brushing it and then accidentally catch more hair in it and it all becomes kind of a tangled mess. If there's a really bad knot that you're really struggling with, sometimes it can be best just to try and brush it out by hand. Sometimes the oil in your hands can help just make it that bit smoother to do, and it won't damage the wig as much as tugging it with a comb or a brush. Now you've got to decide if you want layers in your wig or not. So as you can see with my wig, it did come with layers, but if it didn't, don't worry, I'll teach you how to put in layers later. You can see the effect of a curly wig kind of here in these animated pictures of with or without layers, and what it has on the overall look at the end. Then you want to separate the layers, start from the top and go down, and yes, do this before you start cutting if you haven't already got layers in. This point, when you're sectioning out the sections of your hair, you want to do them according to what character you're doing. So if you know there's going to be a spike in a certain place, then section that bit of hair out where you want that spike to be. I've gone over a bit about how I do this in another video. As you can see here is how I recognize where spikes will be, and it's good just for reference. Keep looking at a reference image if you can. Here you can see I start separating the layers. I did find when you look closely at how layers are separated, as mine are already separated, it's 3 bits of hair, and then that will equal all the same length. So I went and separated them all, each 3 layers of length, so all that row was the same length. And then once I'd done it all, I tied it up, as you can see here, and moved on to the next layer. And I repeated this using 3 layers, and I went all the way down with the last layer, leaving 4 just to give it a thicker base. So this is me all done. There we go. And now if you want layers, this is the point where you want to start cutting the different levels of your hair. So do not cut in a straight line. As you can see, it doesn't look very natural, but I just done it as an example of what not to do. What you're going to want to do is get some hair dressing scissors. There are 2 types I use here. So these ones, they're quite good on creating different layer effects, and cut the edges so you can try and get that kind of more natural kind of point spike, especially that anime characters do. So the other way you can do it with just normal hairdressing scissors is to go from an angle and cut down. Do this multiple times. It will help bring out more of a natural point. This is done very quickly. I couldn't get a good angle because I did have a cameraman briefly for this just to record it. But just go over and try and trim the edges so it looks, as I say, more natural, because hair does grow at very slightly different lengths, so you'll have some longer and some not. And just go over and over, cutting to try and help create that little point and grove. I'd always cut longer than you think you're going to cut, especially if you're going to crimp, because that will bring it shorter, and you can always cut more, but you can never add any more back. I will admit I had to do this very quickly, and because I couldn't get a good angle of it, it doesn't end up that good, but it's just to show you a bit how to cut. If you want me to do a cutting tutorial another time, I will happily go into that for you. And then back to my actual wig, I sectioned off the areas of the front to make sure the spikes were according to my reference image. Don't mind me, I'm watching Miraculous in the background. So now you've got your hair all sectioned off into the sections you want each spike to be. Now it's time to start prepping it. So I chose to very lightly crimp this wig. I'm not going to go into much detail about crimping in this video. I have done other videos where I've gone into crimping and kind of what the benefits and drawbacks are of crimping. To keep it short, basically I did it to help add a bit of volume, and crimping it will help straighten it all out so you can kind of see how I then get the curls in place, which I think is very useful. So don't mind me crimping my wig just to kind of show you what I did and how long it kind of takes. Just a little break. Meet my cat Cynthia, who liked to keep playing with my wigs. That's why I had to keep rebrushing it. And now for the bit you've probably all been waiting for, how to curl a wig. So I bought these really cheap rollers off Amazon, and what I had to do was I cut the Velcro off it. You can, if you just use especially a small pair of scissors, you can peel the base layer of Velcro off. Otherwise, if you use that with a synthetic wig and it's not real hair, you'll find it will make your wig very, very messy and you'll have to brush it all out again. So you just want the plastic circle, as you can see here. I did use smaller sizes, but they were already cut. So now I made sure to grab a section I wanted. I got the hair straighteners, and as I was rolling it, as you'll watch here, I heated up just the bit I was about to roll. Watch out, this can be quite hot on your fingers. My fingers are immune to heat by this point, but heated up the bit I wanted, grabbed the size roller I wanted, pinned it in place at the bottom, as you can see here, and then started to wrap. Now, every time I wanted to wrap a new section of hair, I straightened them with the hair straightener. This will help it kind of form to its new rolled shape. You repeat this going all the way up. I occasionally sprayed it with a bit of hairspray just to help that a little bit more. You roll all the way up, and then when you're at the top, pin it to the top of the wig and make sure to leave it for a good few hours. Some of mine I left overnight, and you can see the result here of just one spike. So once I'd attached it all, I sprayed it with a bit of Got2b hairspray. I then also, which you don't see here, went over with a hairdryer to help cool it down. And I also used a steamer to help steam the curls. That will help create the fibres to want to curl in that way a bit more of the wig before undoing it.
A few moments later.
And now it is time for the big reveal. Does my curl look like a curl? I hope and pray in my head that it does. So you unpin the sides. You don't want to get it caught up with pins or tug it. Gently unroll it down until you get, remember, each pin taking off where it comes. Gently unrolling. It may look a bit messy at some points, but it's okay. Hopefully when you see it at the end, here we go, gently brush it through with your hands. You'll see that there is a curl, and we will brush it out a bit later. If it's too curly for you, you'll want to go back and do it with a thicker roller. If it's not as curly as you want it to be, go back and do it with a thinner roller. So now I know I'm happy with the curl that came out with that. As you can see, I've tucked it to the side. I kept the same curlers and went round and done that whole layer. So that was the bottom layer, and I made sure to keep it separate. So here we go. Let's fast forward all the work and add some more free copyright music in. the bottom layer fairly done. I did just brush it out with my fingers. It's a lot better than using a comb because of the natural oils in your fingers, and it's a lot more gentle. And once you're done with the first layer, then you can move on. As you can see here, I've done part of the second layer. So let's speed it up again. You might realise what I've done here. I used some smaller curlers for the top layer, so you can really see that curl in the top bit, and it helps just distinguish the layers if that's what you want, if you want layers. If not, I'd recommend using all the same. And if you look a bit closer at the curler here, I use the sides down, and you can see what a difference that makes. But that will brush out a bit with your hands, and maybe very gently with a comb if you want. But I made sure for each layer I did to use the same type of curlers. While some of the layers were setting in and drying in their curly shape, I went and styled the fringe. Now the fringe for me wasn't curly, so I went and styled it in how I normally style fringes, making sure to look at a reference image. I didn't really have a proper reference images for Female Tartaglia because she's not a proper character. She's done as Male Tartaglia, and I've done Male Tartaglia wigs so many times, so I kind of knew what I was doing. Again, I'm not going to go into this step of the process that much because I've done it in several other videos, my Al Haytham and my Tartaglia wig, so go check them out if you're interested. Once all the layers of the back were complete, I did have a layer at the top that was a lot shorter, and I wanted to blend that into the style I'd done at the front. So I went around and styled this using hairspray and then a hairdryer, doing it in the relevant spikes I wanted. This really helped it, say, blend in with how I styled the front, and so it didn't all look completely different. As you can see, when I turn it, it makes it all look a bit the same and not completely different from curls to straight spikes. This is also another reason I crimped it, even though I knew I'd be going over some of it with straighteners, so that gradient from that crimped at the front to the non-crimped at the back would just be a bit smoother, and you wouldn't notice a drastic contrast or difference. So there we go, that's what the wig looked like from the front and from the back, and what it looks like on. I hope this tutorial was useful for you. Please give me a like, a thumbs up and a subscribe, and if you need any help, let me know in the comments.